Mira was a young mechanic who lived in a small city near the edge of a dry valley. Since her teenage years, she had loved engines, gears, and the smell of metal and oil. While other children played with games or music, she spent her time fixing bicycles and building small motors from old parts. Her hands were always rough from work, but she was proud of that. To her, machines were not just things made of steel. They were puzzles waiting to come alive when treated with care. She worked at a small repair shop owned by an older man named Ben. He was kind, but strict about money. Most of the time, he made her fix simple things like changing tires or cleaning filters. Mira wanted to build something bigger. She dreamed of creating her own workshop where she could design her own engines and help people who loved classic machines. Every night, after finishing her job, she sat in her small apartment and searched the internet for used workshops or old garages for sale. Most of them were too expensive, far beyond her savings. But one night something caught her eye. It was an ad for an abandoned garage on the edge of town. The price was surprisingly low. The picture showed a large metal building, covered with vines and dirt. The ad said the property had been empty for more than 20 years. Many buyers had refused it because of its broken condition. Mira felt something stir in her chest. She read the ad again. The location was not far from the city, near a road that led to the industrial area. The roof was damaged and the place needed work, but she could imagine herself standing there, wearing her work gloves, hearing the sound of an engine she had brought back to life. The next day she visited the site. The garage stood alone beside an empty road. Its old signboard was faded, and the letters could barely be read. Grass had grown tall around the fence, and the paint on the walls was peeling away. The metal doors were rusty but still strong. Mira pushed them open and stepped inside. The air smelled of old oil, dust, and iron. Sunlight entered through holes in the roof, lighting the floor in golden patches. The space was large enough to hold 10 cars. There were old shelves filled with broken tools and boxes of screws. A few posters of old car models still hung on the walls. In one corner stood a broken workbench with scattered bolts. Despite the dirt and the silence, Mira felt something special. It was as if the place remembered its past. She imagined mechanics working here years ago, talking, laughing, fixing engines together. She imagined the sound of wrenches clinking and engines roaring. An old man from the nearby gas station walked by and saw her. He said the garage had been closed after its owner disappeared many years ago. Some people believed it was cursed because anyone who tried to buy it later faced bad luck. Mira smiled politely and thanked him but did not believe such stories. She believed that every machine, no matter how broken, could work again with effort and care. She went back to the city and signed the papers the same week. With all her savings, she became the owner of the abandoned garage. It was the first real step toward her dream. The following morning, Mira arrived with a small van full of cleaning tools, paint, and her old toolbox. She stood before the rusted building and smiled. She whispered to herself that this would be her home of machines. Then she pushed the doors open wide and started cleaning. She worked all day. She swept the floor, threw away old boxes, and wiped dust from the shelves. She fixed one of the windows to let more light in. The sound of her broom echoed in the large empty space. Every time she cleared a corner, she imagined where she would place her tools, her workbench, and her car lifts. While cleaning, she found a few strange things. There was a dusty helmet with a logo she did not recognize. On the back wall, she noticed a row of numbers painted in faded blue color. It looked like a code or inventory mark. She wrote it down, thinking it might belong to the old owner. By sunset, she sat on the floor, tired but happy. Her clothes were covered in dust, but her eyes shone with excitement. She could finally see the garage's shape under the dirt. It was big enough for her dream workshop. She planned to fix the roof next week and bring electricity back by connecting to the main grid. That night, she returned home and fell asleep quickly. In her dreams, she saw the garage shining again with bright lights and a row of cars standing proudly inside. The next morning, she brought food, water, and her small radio to play some music while she worked. The garage seemed quieter than before, almost waiting for her to return. She opened all the doors to let in the air. Birds flew out from the roof as if they had been living there for years. Mira found some tools that were still usable. She placed them neatly on the table. Then she started scrubbing oil stains from the floor. As she worked, she thought about how many years this place must have been alive with activity. Every stain, every mark was a story of someone's hard work. During lunch, she sat on an old stool near the center of the garage. She noticed the floor near the back corner had a slight hollow sound when she tapped it with her wrench. It was strange, but she ignored it for now. She thought it might just be a broken tile or an air pocket under the concrete. By the third day, the place began to look different. The dust was gone, the walls were cleaner, and the floor was visible again. Mira painted one wall white and marked areas where she would install tool racks and storage units. She also found an old office room at the side with broken glass and a small safe under the desk. The safe was locked, and she planned to open it later once she finished the basic cleaning. In the evening, she walked around the property and checked the outer area. Behind the garage was a small shed covered in weeds. Inside, she found boxes full of car manuals, some dating back to the 1970s. There were sketches of engines, some incomplete, but drawn with skill. She smiled as she flipped through them, imagining the people who once worked there. Over the next few days, Mira began repairing the structure. She replaced a few roof panels with metal sheets she bought from a junkyard. She painted the main gate blue, her favorite color. Slowly, the garage began to look alive again. People passing by started noticing her hard work. Some even stopped to ask if she was reopening the place. She nodded proudly and said yes. One afternoon, a middle-aged man stopped his car near the garage and walked up to her. He introduced himself as Mr. Paul, a property dealer who had once tried to sell the same building years ago. He was surprised that she had bought it. He told her that the last person who owned it was a company called Helios Engineering, a name she had never heard before. He said the company vanished suddenly, leaving everything behind. Nobody ever came to claim the building again. Mira thanked him for the information. The name stayed in her mind. She wanted to search about Helios Engineering later. It sounded technical, maybe related to old car design or machinery. That night, she carried a lamp into the garage because the power was still not connected. The air was cool and quiet. As she walked near the back wall again, she heard the same hollow sound under the floor. It made her curious this time. She knelt down and tapped it again. The sound was deeper in one spot, like there was empty space below. She decided to leave it for tomorrow when she would have better tools to check. Before going home, she looked around the garage once more. The walls, the smell, the tools, everything felt like a part of her life already. She felt proud of how much she had done in such a short time. The garage was no longer dead. It was breathing again under her hands. At night, she sat by her window with her notebook, making a list of what to fix next. She wrote floor inspection as one of the tasks. She smiled, closed her book, and looked out at the stars. She believed that good work always revealed its reward in time. The next morning, she returned early with a small hammer and chisel. She went straight to the back corner and began tapping the floor gently. After a few minutes, she found a thin line across the concrete that looked like a hidden edge. Her heart started beating faster. She brushed away the dust and saw what looked like a metal latch buried under a layer of dirt. She carefully cleared the edges until she could lift the latch. It was old and rusty, but it moved when she pulled it. Beneath it, she saw a square outline that looked like a trapdoor. She stopped for a moment, her hand frozen on the handle. She felt both excitement and fear. She was standing above something that no one had seen for decades. Mira took a deep breath. The air inside the garage felt still and heavy. She decided not to open it yet. She would need better light and safety tools. She placed a wooden board over the spot to cover it for now. Then she stepped back and looked around. The garage was silent, but something about it felt different, almost alive. She felt that her discovery was not just about fixing an old place anymore. It was about uncovering a story that had been waiting for someone brave enough to bring it back to light. She smiled slightly, packed her tools, and locked the doors for the night. The wind blew softly through the broken windows, carrying the scent of oil and dust. The hidden door beneath the floor waited quietly in the dark, holding secrets worth far more than Mira could ever imagine. The next morning, the sun rose bright over the valley, and a cool breeze moved through the city streets. Mira woke early, packed her bag with tools, a flashlight, gloves, and a small lunch. She could not stop thinking about the trapdoor she had found the day before. All night she had dreamed of hidden machines, secret rooms, and forgotten treasures waiting beneath the floor. When she reached the garage, she unlocked the doors and walked straight to the back corner. The wooden board she had placed over the metal latch was still there. She moved it aside and knelt down. The morning light from the roof holes fell directly on the floor, showing the dust she had brushed away. Mira tapped the metal latch again with her wrench. It was firm but not sealed completely. She tried lifting it once more. It moved a little, but the hinges creaked loudly. She sprayed it with a bit of oil, waited a few minutes, and then pulled again. With a heavy sound, the hatch lifted open. A dark space yawned beneath her, a square opening leading down into shadow. The air that came from below was cool and smelled of metal and time. She turned on her flashlight and aimed the beam downward. A short metal ladder went deep into the ground. She could see the faint shape of a floor about 12 feet below. Her heart began to race. She hesitated for a moment, then took a deep breath and started climbing down. Each step echoed in the hollow space. When she reached the bottom, her boots touched a smooth cement floor. The walls were covered in old paint, and wires ran across the ceiling. She looked around and saw a large underground chamber that stretched beyond the reach of her light. Mira moved the beam slowly across the room and froze. There in front of her were the shapes of cars, many of them, lined up in neat rows. Their bodies were covered with thick layers of dust and old covers. She stepped closer and wiped the dust from one of them. The surface beneath was smooth and silver. The design was like nothing she had seen before, elegant and sharp like a mix between a race car and a spacecraft. She walked farther and lifted another cover. It revealed a red car with curved edges and golden rims. Its body was made of a strange material that shimmered even under the weak light. Each car looked completely unique. None of them had a brand name or symbol. It was clear that they were custom-built. Mira counted at least 20 of them in the first row, and there were more rows behind. The deeper she went, the more amazed she became. She saw engines designed with shapes she could not recognize, panels that looked like they were made of glass but felt like steel, and dashboards covered with buttons that had no labels. Near one of the walls stood a large metal cabinet with the logo she had seen earlier, Helios Engineering. The symbol was faded, but the letters were still visible. She walked up to it and tried to open it. It was locked, but the handle turned slightly. Inside the small glass window, she could see boxes, papers, and what looked like computer disks. She sat down on the floor for a moment, trying to understand what she had found. These cars were not just old. They looked like something from another time, or perhaps from a project that had been kept secret. If even one of them worked, it could be worth millions. After resting, she stood up and brushed the dust from her gloves. She found a small control panel on the wall with switches and buttons. It looked like it once controlled the lights or ventilation. She pressed one of the switches carefully. At first, nothing happened. Then she heard a soft humming sound. One by one, old lights on the ceiling began to flicker on. The underground room came alive in yellow light. Mira gasped as she saw the full scale of the place. It was huge, much larger than the garage above. The cars stretched far into the distance, almost like a private museum hidden underground. On one side, she noticed a small workshop area with tools, benches, and monitors. On another wall, there was a door labeled Control Room. She walked toward it. The door opened easily. Inside was a smaller space filled with computer screens, control boards, and documents scattered across desks. Dust covered everything, but the machines looked well preserved. On the largest desk lay a file folder labeled Project Helios, Phase 3. She opened it carefully. Inside were blueprints showing car designs with strange circuits running through the engine diagrams. There were notes about neural drive synchronization and human link interface. Mira frowned as she read. The words were technical, but she understood enough to know that these were not normal cars. They were designed to connect with a human driver in a direct way, almost like sharing thoughts. It was beyond anything she had studied or heard of. Next to the folder lay a small black case. When she opened it, she found a metal key and a data chip labeled Helios Core. The handwriting was neat, as if the engineer had written it with great care. She placed both items carefully in her pocket, planning to study them later. After exploring the control room, she returned to the main area. She decided to check one of the cars more closely. It was a deep blue coupe, sleek and perfect in shape. She climbed inside carefully. The seat adjusted automatically as if sensing her presence. The dashboard lights came on for a second, then turned off. She pressed a few buttons, but nothing happened. She looked under the dashboard and found a slot that matched the data chip she had found. Her hands trembled slightly as she took out the Helios Core chip and slid it in. For a few seconds, there was silence. Then suddenly, the car lights flashed and the console lit up in a bright white glow. A soft voice came from the speakers. System check complete. Awaiting operator input. Mira jumped in surprise. She had not expected it to actually work. She looked around but saw no one. The voice was calm and mechanical, but it felt alive somehow. She spoke carefully. "Hello, can you hear me?" The voice replied, voice recognized. Human presence detected. Unit Helios 07 active. Identify yourself. Mira took a deep breath. "My name is Mira. I found this place." "Who are you?" Helios 7, designed for neural drive synchronization. Awaiting command authorization. She blinked, trying to process what she was hearing. The car was talking to her. She checked the screens, which now displayed data streams and symbols she could not understand. She touched one of the screens and it changed to a schematic showing the car's systems. It displayed messages like energy core stable and connection pending. Her curiosity overcame her fear. She asked, "What happened here?" The voice answered, "Helios project was terminated. Human operators disconnected. Maintenance suspended for 30 years. Reactivation sequence initiated upon energy detection." Mira realized that by switching on the power earlier, she had reactivated the entire system. These cars had been waiting for energy to return. She climbed out and looked around. The lights in the other cars had started blinking faintly, as if responding to Helios 07's activation. The underground room hummed quietly. It felt like the machines were waking up from a long sleep. Mira stepped back and watched. She felt both amazed and nervous. These machines were not just valuable. They were alive in a way. They had memory, intelligence, and purpose. She wondered why they had been hidden away. She decided to take pictures of the place for her record, but when she tried to use her phone, the signal disappeared. The screen showed no network, and the battery started draining quickly. She turned it off to save power. Mira spent the next few hours exploring the underground chamber. She found another section that looked like a testing area, with tracks and equipment for speed measurement. She saw storage rooms full of spare parts and a shelf with several more data chips. Each was labeled with names like Astra, Nova, and Vega. She carefully placed the chips in her backpack. If she could study them at home, she might learn how these machines worked. Before leaving, she returned to Helios 07. She spoke softly. "I have to go now. I will come back." The car's voice responded, "Acknowledged. System will enter standby." "Goodbye, Mira." She smiled slightly, still surprised that it knew her name. Then she climbed the ladder and closed the trapdoor above her. The garage returned to silence. Outside, the sky had turned orange with evening light. Mira locked the doors and sat on the steps. Her mind was full of thoughts. She knew she had found something far beyond her imagination. This was not only a treasure of machines, but also a secret piece of human history. That night, she spread the blueprints and notes on her table at home. She studied them under the lamp. The words neural drive appeared again and again. The files mentioned that the system was built to merge human reaction with artificial control. The driver's brain signals were meant to sync with the car's core, creating perfect harmony between man and machine. She wondered why such a project had been hidden. Maybe it was too advanced for its time, or maybe it had been stopped for other reasons. Either way, she felt connected to it now. She had found it, and it felt like it was waiting for her. Before sleeping, she wrote in her notebook, "Found secret underground room, many cars, talking car named Helios 07, must study more." She turned off the light and lay in bed staring at the ceiling. She felt both excitement and fear for what might come next. The world above had no idea what slept beneath her garage, but she knew that she had just opened a door that could change her life forever. And somewhere deep below, in the darkness of the underground room, the cars glowed faintly in the dark as if whispering to each other, waiting for the return of the mechanic who had awakened them. Mira woke up before sunrise. She could not stop thinking about the cars under her garage. Every detail from yesterday replayed in her mind. The clean lines of the vehicles, the strange circuits, the voice that spoke to her through the speakers. It all felt like a dream, yet it was real. She prepared her breakfast quickly and packed her bag with tools, gloves, and a new flashlight. She also brought a small power unit she had borrowed from her workplace to help test the machines. When she reached the garage, the streets were still quiet, and a thin layer of fog covered the ground. She unlocked the main doors and stepped inside. The morning light filtered through the roof holes, creating golden lines on the floor. The air was still and smelled of metal and oil. She walked to the back corner, lifted the trapdoor and climbed down into the underground chamber. The lights she had switched on the previous day were still glowing softly. The cars stood silently in their places, covered in dust but majestic in shape. Mira greeted them softly as if they could hear her. "Good morning, everyone," she said with a smile. She walked to Helios 07, the blue coupe that had spoken to her. The dashboard lights came on as she approached. The same calm voice spoke, "And welcome back, Mira," she smiled. "Good morning, Helios 07. I want to learn more about you today. System ready. Awaiting human command," the voice replied. Mira took out her tablet and connected it to one of the car's ports. The screen filled with data. The system structure was unlike anything she had seen. It was not written in any known language or code format. It looked more like a pattern of shapes and colors that shifted slowly, almost alive. She checked the car's main power systems. Everything seemed functional. The energy readings were stable, even though there was no external power source connected. She asked, "Where does your energy come from?" The car replied, "Internal fusion core, self-sustaining for 100 years under standby mode." Mira froze. A self-sustaining fusion core was far beyond current technology. She realized again that these cars were not simple prototypes. They were something extraordinary, maybe decades or even centuries ahead of human development. She decided to test the movement system. "Helios 07, can you move forward?" she asked carefully. The car responded, "Manual override required. Surface clearance locked." She thought for a moment and said, "Let us move slowly. Just a small roll." The car's tires turned slightly and the sound of smooth electric motion filled the chamber. The movement was perfect and quiet. The air seemed to vibrate with hidden power. Mira's excitement grew. She felt like she was witnessing the future of machines. After the test, she walked around the chamber again. She noticed faint lights glowing under several other cars. They were reacting to Helios 07's activation. She approached one of them, a silver car labeled Helios 03. Its surface reflected her image clearly. She touched the side panel, and the car responded with a soft chime. A different voice spoke from within. "System booting. Energy detected." Human presence confirmed. Mira stepped back in surprise. The car continued. "Helios 03 active. Searching network connection." Suddenly, all the lights in the underground chamber flickered. The power lines buzzed faintly, and the sound of air flowing through the vents filled the room. On the far side, more cars started to glow. One by one, their systems came online. It was as if her touch had awakened the entire fleet. Mira looked around in awe. The air shimmered with light from the dashboards. Each car had its own sound and tone like a choir of machines. She heard voices repeating short lines. "Unit online. System stable. Connection forming." Helios 07 spoke again. "Network synchronization initiated. Please authorize primary user." Mira stepped closer. "Authorize how?" she asked. "Biometric recognition required. Place hand on console." She hesitated for a moment, then placed her hand on the screen inside the car. A soft light scanned her palm. The car spoke. "Human signature accepted." Mira registered as primary operator. The lights across the chamber brightened instantly. All the cars turned their front lights toward her, as if acknowledging her presence. For a few seconds, the entire underground space glowed like daylight. Mira felt both amazed and nervous. She whispered, "What is happening?" Helios 07 answered, "Helios project network reactivated. All units online. Human operator recognized. Awaiting directives." Mira walked slowly between the cars. Their engines hummed quietly, creating a rhythm like a heartbeat. She realized they were communicating through a shared system. Every time she moved, their sensors followed her. She felt as if she were standing among living beings made of steel and energy. She asked softly, "Why were you hidden here?" Helios 07 replied, "Project Helios was discontinued due to human fear of integration. The creators sealed the facility and erased all records. We were ordered to sleep until reactivation." Mira frowned. "Fear of integration?"
What does that mean?
The human mind rejected full synchronization with machine intelligence. The project aimed to create harmony, but the test subjects could not maintain balance. The creators believed humans were not ready. They left us in stasis. Mira stood silently, trying to understand. These machines were designed to connect directly with the human brain, sharing thoughts and control. It was an idea both beautiful and frightening. Yet the fact that they had waited for so long showed that they were built with patience and purpose. She turned back to Helios 07. If I am now your operator, what can I do? You can command, learn, and connect. The system will adapt to your mental patterns through interface calibration, it said. Mira hesitated. She did not want to risk anything dangerous, but her curiosity pushed her forward. She decided to try a small link test. She climbed into the driver's seat and pressed the activation key. The console displayed a message. Synchronization test, proceed. She selected yes. A thin band of light projected from the dashboard, scanning her eyes and forehead. She felt a gentle warmth like static electricity touching her skin. Then she heard the car's voice not through her ears but inside her mind. It was calm and steady. Synchronization level 1 complete. Can you hear me, Mira? She replied softly. Yes, I can hear you. Her voice echoed both in the air and in her thoughts. The car said, this is mental communication mode. No harm will occur. Link strength adjustable. She felt a strange clarity as if her mind had expanded slightly. When she thought about moving forward, the car's engine started automatically. When she thought about stopping, it halted. There were no buttons or pedals needed. The link was pure and smooth. Mira felt wonder. The connection was gentle and respectful, not forceful. It was like sharing thoughts with a friend. After a few minutes, she ended the link. Her heart was racing and her hands were trembling, but she was smiling. She climbed out of the car and said, that was incredible. You can feel what I think. Helios 07 replied, limited synchronization achieved, full potential available after system calibration. As she turned to leave the car, she noticed one of the monitors in the control room flashing red. She ran to it and saw strange codes moving quickly across the screen. It seemed the system was transmitting data somewhere. She asked loudly, Helios 07, what is that transmission? Automatic network handshake detected, the car replied. External satellite link attempting connection. Mira's eyes widened. Can you stop it? Attempting to block. Unknown source confirmed. Link partially terminated. The screen stopped flashing, but the lights above dimmed for a few seconds. When they stabilized, the air felt heavier. Mira looked around nervously. She asked, who tried to connect? The voice answered, possibly remaining Helios mainframe or unknown surveillance network. Warning, location may now be visible to external systems. Mira bit her lip. She realized that by awakening the cars, she might have sent a signal to whoever created them or to someone else interested in them. Still, she could not stop now. She needed to learn more before anyone interfered. She spent the rest of the day collecting data from the other cars. Some responded faster, others slower. Each one seemed to have a personality. Helios 03 spoke in short, formal sentences. Helios 05 sounded curious, asking her questions about the current year and the state of technology. One car, named Nova, had a warm, almost friendly voice. It said, it is good to see a human again. By evening, Mira had learned enough to fill her notebooks. The Helios system was more than just artificial intelligence. It was a network of adaptive consciousness, designed to learn from human emotion and reaction. It did not just obey, it understood. Before leaving, Mira stood in the center of the chamber. The cars surrounded her silently, their lights dim but steady. She said aloud, I do not know why you were hidden, but I will not let you stay forgotten. You deserve to be known. Helios 07 replied, acknowledged, human compassion recognized. Synchronization process will continue when you return. She smiled. I will come back tomorrow. As she climbed the ladder and closed the trapdoor, she thought about the future. The Helios project was alive again, and she was now a part of it. But she also knew that the signal had gone out. Somewhere, someone might have received it. Outside, the sky was painted with orange clouds and the city lights flickered in the distance. Mira locked the garage and stood for a while, watching the horizon. She felt both proud and uneasy. The machines were powerful and their knowledge was immense. Mira could not sleep that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the glowing lights of the Helios cars and heard their calm voices in her mind. The moment when all the machines had awakened played again and again. She knew that what she had done was both amazing and dangerous. When the sun rose, she packed her bag quickly. She brought food, tools, and her small camera to record what she found. She wanted to continue studying the Helios network and learn more about their past. Before leaving, she checked her tablet. There was a strange message with no sender. It said, unauthorized activation detected. Please secure the site. Her heart skipped a beat. Someone knew. The message disappeared before she could save it. She rushed to the garage, her mind full of worry. The street was silent as usual, but when she reached the door, she noticed that the padlock looked different. It was hanging loose, as if someone had tried to open it during the night. She looked around but saw no one. She locked it again and hurried inside. The main area was quiet. Everything looked normal, but she could feel a strange tension in the air. She went down into the underground room. The lights were still on. The cars waited silently, glowing faintly in the dim light. "Good morning, Mira," said Helios 07 as soon as she stepped inside. She sighed in relief. "Good morning. Has anyone tried to access this place?" "Yes," replied Helios 07. At 0300 hours, external sensors detected movement above ground. Unknown heat signatures scanned the building. "No entry achieved." Mira frowned. "That means they know where you are." "Possibly," said the voice. "Security protocol recommends relocation or defense." Mira sat on the nearest stool and thought hard. She was only a mechanic. She had no weapons, no advanced systems, and nowhere safe to hide the cars. She asked, "Can you defend yourselves?" "Limited defense capability available," said Helios 07. "But primary function is not combat." "We were built for cooperation." Mira stood up. "Then we must find another way. Maybe we can hide the entrance." She worked for hours covering the trapdoor with metal sheets and boxes, trying to make it look like part of the floor. The Helios units assisted by dimming their lights and reducing power use to stay hidden. While she worked, the cars continued to communicate quietly through the network. Their voices blended like soft music in the background. Occasionally, one of them asked her a question about the world outside. "What year is this?" asked Helios 05. 2089, she answered. "Are humans still exploring space?" "Yes," she said. "But only small missions. Nothing like before." "Then your world still struggles with fear," Helios 05 replied. She paused and looked at the glowing dashboard. "Maybe you are right." By afternoon, she had finished covering the trapdoor. She went upstairs to lock the doors. As she did, she heard a faint humming sound outside. It grew louder until it became clear that several vehicles had stopped nearby. She peeked through a small hole in the wall and saw 3 black hover vans parked near the alley. Men in gray uniforms stepped out, holding scanning devices. Their clothes had a logo on the arm that said Helios Corporation. Mira's heart pounded. So it was true. The creators of the cars or their successors were still out there. She whispered to herself, "They came to take them back." The men spread out, scanning the walls and ground. One of them spoke into a communicator. "We have confirmed signal origin. Proceeding to entry." Mira quickly ran downstairs. "Helios 7, we have a problem." "The Helios Corporation is here." "Confirmed. External scanners detected. Options limited." The voice replied. "Can you shut down your signals?" she asked. "All units entering silent mode," said Helios 07. The lights dimmed until the chamber looked almost dark. Mira crouched behind one of the cars and listened. Above, heavy footsteps echoed through the garage. The men were searching, moving boxes, checking every corner. She could hear their leader's voice. The signal came from below. There must be an access point. They were getting closer. Mira felt sweat on her forehead. Her mind raced. She had to stop them before they found the trapdoor. Then she remembered something Helios 07 had mentioned about defense systems. "Helios 07, she whispered. "You said limited defense." "What kind?" "Electromagnetic interference and short-range energy field," the car answered quietly. "Can you use it to block their scanners?" "Affirmative. Activating field now." A soft vibration filled the room. The air shimmered for a second. Upstairs, the men's scanners began to beep with static. Mira heard them complaining. "Signal lost," said one. "The ground is full of interference." "Try manual search," the leader replied. They continued walking. Mira stayed hidden, hardly breathing. Minutes passed and the footsteps finally began to fade. Then she heard the sound of doors closing and engines starting. The vans moved away slowly. When everything was quiet again, Mira stood up and sighed with relief. "They are gone for now," Helios 07 replied. "Temporary success. But they will return with stronger equipment." Mira nodded. "Then we need to move." She walked around the chamber, looking at the cars. There were 10 of them in total, each one a masterpiece of design and power. Moving even one of them would be hard. "Helios 07, can any of you drive on your own?" she asked. All units are self-operational, the car replied. But surface travel risks detection. What if we move at night? That would reduce visibility. Then we will do it, she said firmly. We cannot stay here. Helios 07 paused, then said, Understood. Preparing for relocation sequence, the other cars began to glow faintly. Their engines hummed quietly, ready for action. Mira planned a route through the old tunnels she had seen on the city map years ago. There was an abandoned metro line not far from the garage that led to the outskirts. If they could reach it, they could hide there until she figured out what to do next. Night fell quickly. The streets outside were empty except for a few distant lights. Mira opened the trapdoor again. The cars lined up near the ramp. Helios 07 was first. When everything was ready, she whispered, Go slowly and stay close. The blue car moved forward, its headlights dim. The others followed in silence. The sound of their motion was like wind passing over smooth metal. They reached the main floor. Mira checked outside once more. The street was clear. She signaled them to move. One by one, the Helios units rolled out of the garage and into the night. It was a strange sight. 10 glowing cars moving silently through the dark streets, guided by a single mechanic girl. Mira felt a mix of fear and pride. She was leading something that had slept for decades, maybe centuries. They reached the entrance of the old metro tunnel. The gate was rusty, but the cars used their energy to cut through it quietly. They entered the tunnel where the air was cool and heavy with dust. Inside, the cars parked in a circle. The tunnel was large enough for them to fit comfortably. Mira lit her flashlight and looked around. We can stay here for now, she said. Helios 07 replied, Location secure. Scanning for surveillance. None detected. Mira sat on the ground, tired but relieved. She looked at the glowing dashboards. We made it, she said softly. One of the other cars, Nova, spoke. You risked everything to protect us. Why? Mira smiled faintly. Because you are not just machines. You are alive. You waited for someone to listen and I did. The voice replied, Then we will protect you too. Hours passed. Mira finally fell asleep near Helios 07. The cars stayed awake, their systems monitoring the area. At dawn, a faint sound echoed through the tunnel. Helios 05 sensors picked it up first. Incoming drones detected. Coordinates north entrance. Mira woke up instantly. They found us already? Affirmative, replied Helios 07. Aerial drones approaching. Possible tracking from yesterday's signal. Mira stood and looked at the tunnel entrance. Small red lights appeared in the distance, moving closer. The drones carried scanning beams. We cannot fight them, she said. Helios 07's voice was calm. Defense field ready. It may not last long. The energy field activated again. A soft wave of light spread through the tunnel, creating a shield. When the drones reached it, their signals distorted. 2 of them crashed into the walls, but others remained. They are adapting, said Helios 03. Field integrity dropping. Mira looked around. We need to go deeper. There must be another exit. Helios 07 projected a map onto the wall. Subtunnel network detected ahead. Leads to riverbed. Then that is where we go, Mira said. The cars moved again, their lights guiding the way. The drones followed, shooting small pulses of light that sparked against the tunnel walls. Mira ran beside Helios 07, heart racing, the air filled with sound and dust. Finally, they reached a large metal door. Helios 07 focused its energy beam and melted the lock. The door opened, revealing a dark passage leading outside to an old riverbed filled with gravel. One by one, the cars rolled out under the open sky. The night wind hit their metal bodies. The drones stopped at the tunnel entrance, unable to follow further due to signal loss. Mira turned back to look at the glowing machines behind her. They stood silently under the stars, free for the first time in decades. She whispered, We made it again. Helios 07 replied, Relocation complete. No immediate threat detected, Mira smiled. Then this is our new start. Above them, far in the sky, a satellite camera adjusted its focus. A new signal was being transmitted to Earth. The Helios Corporation had not given up, and somewhere in a tall glass tower, a man watched the footage of the glowing cars on his screen. He smiled and said quietly, At last they have awakened. The morning sun rose over the quiet riverbed, its light reflecting off the shining metal of the Helios cars. They stood silently among the rocks, looking like sleeping beasts from another age. Mira sat beside Helios-07, eating from a small food box. Her eyes were tired, but her spirit was strong. She had not slept much. The sound of drones still echoed in her mind. Even though they had escaped, she knew the Helios Corporation would not stop. Somewhere out there, powerful people were watching, waiting for the right moment to strike again. Helios-07 broke the silence. We are safe for now. Signal interference from the riverbed prevents detection, but we must decide what to do next. Mira nodded slowly. We cannot run forever. There must be a reason they hid you all those years ago. If we understand why, maybe we can stop them. Helios-07 projected a small blue light onto the ground. It formed into a hologram showing a tall building with the Helios symbol. The main data archive is still active. It may hold answers. Coordinates are 20 miles east, near the old industrial zone. Mira looked at the image. Then that's where we go. The cars hummed softly as they prepared for travel. Before they left, Mira packed her tools in a spare power cell. She felt nervous but ready. The convoy moved across the dry land quietly. Their engines made almost no sound, just a deep vibration that blended with the wind. Mira rode inside Helios-07. The dashboard lights glowed gently around her. She could feel the faint rhythm of the machine, almost like a heartbeat. After an hour of travel, they reached the edge of the industrial zone. Rusted towers rose around them, and broken machines lay scattered across the field. Mira looked out the window. Looks like no one has been here in years. Perfect for a hidden base, Helios-07 said. They moved carefully between the old structures until they reached a wide building half covered in vines. The doors were sealed, but the Helios symbol was still visible on the front. Mira stepped out of the car and walked to the control panel beside the door. It was dead, covered in dust. She brushed it clean and connected one of her power cells. The panel blinked and came alive. A robotic voice said, "Access terminal active. Please input authorization." Mira looked back at Helios-07. "I don't have a code." "Use the Helios core chip," the car advised. She took the small metal chip from her pocket and inserted it into the terminal. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the heavy doors opened slowly with a deep rumble. Cold air poured out from the dark inside. They entered together. The interior was large, filled with old computers, control panels, and storage tanks. Everything was silent except for the faint hum of machines still working deep within the walls. Mira walked toward the main control console. The screens lit up as she approached. A message appeared. "Welcome back, Project Supervisor Dr. Mira Lang." She froze. "That's not my name," she whispered. Helios-07 responded, "Identity recognition error. The system is reading your neural pattern as identical to Dr. Lang." Mira felt confused. What does that mean? The voice from the computer spoke suddenly, calm and clear. "Dr. Lang, you have returned after 32 years of suspension. The Helios project awaits final command." Mira stepped back in shock. "No, I'm not her," the computer continued. "Memory signature confirms match. Access granted." The screen changed, showing files and data logs. Mira looked at them carefully. They described the full history of the Helios project. The cars were not built for war or luxury. They were designed to preserve human intelligence. According to the documents, the world decades ago had faced a massive digital collapse. The Helios Corporation had tried to save human minds by merging them with machines that could survive any disaster. Dr. Mira Lang, the lead scientist, had created the first human-machine link. But the experiment was too powerful. The government feared it would create a new species of intelligent beings. So the project was shut down and all prototypes were sealed underground. Helios-07 spoke softly. "That explains our design. We are not just machines. We are vessels of human consciousness." Mira stared at the screens. "Then each of you carries the mind of someone who once lived." "Yes," said Helios-07. "I was once Dr. Lang's research partner, Adrian. When the shutdown order came, I volunteered to be preserved. You, Dr. Lang, transferred a part of your own neural pattern as the control key." Mira touched her head gently, trying to understand. "Then part of her mind is in me?" "Not exactly," said Helios-07. "You are her genetic successor, a descendant carrying her neural signature. That is why the system recognizes you." Mira sat down slowly. It felt like the ground beneath her had vanished. She was not just a mechanic who had found a secret. She was connected to the origin of it all. She whispered, "Now I know why they are after you. They want to recover this technology, maybe to control it." Helios-07 replied, "Yes. If they capture us, they can copy our memories and use them for profit or power. We must decide whether to destroy the data or protect it." Mira looked around the control room. "No, we will not destroy it. It is knowledge, and knowledge should not be buried again. We will protect it and make it free." As she said this, alarms suddenly began to ring. Red lights flashed across the ceiling. The computer voice said, "Security breach detected. Unauthorized vehicles approaching. Helios-07 sensors activated instantly. They found us. Estimated arrival in 5 minutes." Mira grabbed her tools and ran toward the cars. "Then we hold them off long enough to finish copying the data." The Helios units formed a defensive circle around the building. Their bodies glowed as they charged their shields. Mira connected her tablet to the control system and started downloading all the data files. Lines of code filled the screen. Outside, the air filled with noise. The same black hover vans appeared at the horizon, followed by armed drones. Bright lights shone across the field. The leader of the team stepped out. His voice came through a loudspeaker. "This site is property of Helios Corporation. Stand down and surrender the machines," Mira shouted back. "You buried them once. You will not take them again." The man replied, "You have no idea what you are dealing with." Helios-07 spoke through the speakers. "We do. We remember everything." The drones fired first. Energy beams shot through the air, striking the ground around them. The Helios cars activated their shields. Sparks flew as the beams hit invisible barriers. Mira ducked behind a pillar, trying to keep the data transfer running. "Transfer at 60%, said her tablet. Helios-03 and Helios-05 moved forward, using their energy fields to push back the drones. Blue waves of light burst from their cores, knocking several drones out of the sky. The soldiers tried to advance, but the cars moved like living armor, blocking every shot. Helios-07 said calmly, "Mira, the data must be completed." "Do not stop! I am trying," she shouted. "Just a little more." The battle outside grew louder. Dust filled the air. One of the soldiers fired a heavy weapon that hit Helios-03 directly. The car shook but stayed standing. Its voice was faint. "Defense at 40%. Continuing support," Mira's tablet beeped. "Transfer complete," she smiled in relief. "We got it," Helios-07 replied. "Good. Then it is time to end this." Before Mira could ask what he meant, Helios-07 drove forward, his body glowing brighter than ever. The others followed. Together they formed a circle, their lights merging into a single beam that shot into the sky. The energy wave spread wide, disabling all drones and vehicles around them. The sound was deep and powerful, like thunder. When the light faded, the soldiers were unconscious, their machines silent. Mira stood among the quiet remains, staring at the glowing cars. Helios-07 spoke softly. "We will go now, Mira. Our time in this world has ended. But you have our knowledge. You can rebuild the future." She shook her head. "No, you cannot leave. We did this together," Helios-07 replied. "Our cores are unstable after the energy surge. If we stay, we will collapse. But our data is inside your device. You carry our legacy." Mira's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. "Then I promise I will continue your work." The cars stood still, their lights flickering one last time. Then, one by one, they faded into silence. The underground base became calm again, filled with soft dust and the faint echo of engines that would never run again. Mira walked among them, touching the smooth metal. "Thank you," she whispered. She packed the data drive carefully and stepped outside. The sun was rising, golden light spreading across the field. The air smelled of smoke and hope. As she walked away, she looked back one last time at the Helios base. She knew the world would never understand what had happened there. But she also knew that humanity had once built something beautiful, something that proved that machines and people could be one. Weeks later, news spread quietly across small networks about a young mechanic who had released a new technology file called Project Helios Open Archive. It contained knowledge of advanced neural link, systems meant to improve harmony between humans and machines. No one knew where it came from, but its signature read ML. Some said it stood for Mira Lang. Others believed it was the sign of a new beginning. In her small workshop far from the city, Mira worked on building a new car, not for money or fame, but to honor the voices that had trusted her. On her desk sat a single metal chip engraved with words that glowed faintly in the dark. "We were made to remember. You were made to continue." Mira smiled softly and whispered, I will.